Hey guys, welcome back. Big Data and Dim Sum, Season 2. Super excited to be back. Michael here. We got Ruoyu and Ryan. But yeah, we're super excited for this episode. I know last week you guys had an exciting episode, or whenever you watched it, just feel free to chime in. We're super appreciative of all our listeners and viewers, but we're just having fun with it. Yeah, we're back in person again, and we have a really special episode for you today. Just a quick recap of our last episode. We brought a very special guest, Victor. You may have heard of his story. If you haven't, be sure to check out that episode. Fantastic episode. He brought in some scintillating ideas. It was very interesting and very hot takes on a couple things. Check out our Instagram. Check out our YouTube. Bigdata.dimsum is our handle. Very interesting stuff. I can't reiterate that anymore.
Definitely watch it. It's worth the watch. He's a character in the best way possible.
Definitely. He's his background across, being from Australia, coming to the States his first time on his tour, just, a very unique perspective, and very deep and profound insights shared from him as well, just across mental health, across just his Asian heritage. Great episode, and I know we all enjoyed it.
Master in Psych, right? So
yeah, definitely.
Sure. Big Psych guy.
Yeah. Ryan, do you wanna take us out?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, today's episode, we brought back Ruoyu, who you might have recognized from season 1. Also, he's basically the reason for a lot of the production improvements you're seeing all around the board. So definitely please give him a shout out in the comments when you watch this. But yeah, today we want to bring Ruoyu on just to kind of talk through more of the origin story. And I know that we've talked about the origin story before in previous episodes, but I think the take we want to take today, kind of going off on just more like meaningful topics, is one about friendship. Because, for us three, we've been close friends since we've been in high school. And, we met 12, 13 years ago, maybe even longer for me and Ruoyu, because we went to middle school together.
Right.
And we just want to talk a little bit about kind of how we became a group, how we became friends, kind of our perspectives on friendships, how it's evolved over time, and ultimately just, have a great time and, just reminiscing. So hope you'll enjoy this time of us reminiscing, the different memes and inside jokes that hopefully you'll get cued into, and there'll be references we'll drop later on in future seasons and future episodes. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's it from my end, but I think, one thing I want to start with right here, and I think this is kind of the most classic question, when you're asking about someone that, when you're asking how someone met is, what was your first impression? And I guess what's your first memory of each other? I guess all of us, open question. No real order here, just whoever wants to chime in, and we'll just go from there. So
I'll let you guys kick it off. You guys can, it predates me by a couple years, so why don't you guys give it a go?
I don't know. My memory of middle school is pretty. I try to block a lot of middle school stuff out. Middle school is not a good time.
It's hard for everyone though.
Yeah.
High school is marginally better.
Yeah.
a little bit, yeah.
I mean, because you and I were not really in the same circles, but we obviously went to the same middle school. It's hard not to bump into each other. But I don't think I had a true impression of you probably until high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think so. I mean...
What about football team, though? Because we were part of Mr. Washburn's 8th grade Foothills football team, throwback.
Big football guys. As you can tell, we're very built.
He's very built, though. You should look at his calves, though. They're not for the camera right now, but we'll post on Instagram. Separately. On a different account.
That's a separate account. No, I honestly don't think
Check out our link tree.
I don't think I had a true impression until probably high school, at least what I remember now. Mm-hmm. Obviously, social media was booming at that time, so I think you and I were both on that same page of ooh, if I post at 8 o'clock on Thursday, I'll get the most likes. I think we're both about that grind.
Yeah. It was digital marketing before it was even a concept.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it too, where it's man, we could have taken life skills out of that, but I think a lot of my perspective of why I did that, I don't know if it was the same for you, was the social capital in high school, especially where we went to high school.
Yeah.
So much was based around social media, likes and interactions and engagements, which now it's kind of full circle because that's what people do to monetize.
Yeah.
But back then it was just damn, I just want to be cool.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was also tough too because always running on your mind what's my next status, what's my next post, and it's so draining. So I mean, shout out to content creators. I just can't imagine having to deal with that every day, all day. But going back to it, my first impression was probably when we were around that same time. We were both doing the same thing. And also allies, right? Like I think.
Yeah.
Was that? Were you allies freshman year?
No, not really. I was like involved in it like later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
But allies for context was I'll let you get background on it. You were the.
It was a Christian club. I used to be president of a Christian club. Yeah. No longer religious really, but it was a good time. You know, it was a good group, good people, and yeah, I used to hang with Ruoyu and other friends in it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess just to answer the question, like I think my first impression was, very like friendly guy. I think we talked about it a little, but like obviously I think we were both in the people pleaser. We want to be nice to everyone, want everyone to like us. That's why we, you know, if I'm nice to you, maybe you like my post, maybe you like my status, and all that stuff. And then I don't think it was until maybe junior, senior year, so a few years later on, that we were like on a deeper level. And I respected you. Obviously, we hung out a lot in the library, and we had a lot more conversations and stuff where I saw a little more further than surface level, which is nice.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing for me too. So I think like going back to I guess the original question of first impression, like I think I knew like Ruoyu was a bit of a troublemaker like as a kid, because I mean not troublemaker, I feel like that makes me sound so old, like a grandma. Like, oh, this troublemaking child right over here. But more so like Ruoyu was known to be a really funny and like out there type of dude, and I think that there were a lot of things where one way I would describe him as a middle schooler and early high schooler is like antagonizer, you know, like he would just make shit happen.
Sure.
And that's actually one of the core reasons we met, because I remember like earlier on in high school, actually I had like beef with this one guy, and looking back at it, like I'm a pretty pacifist type of person. I don't really like have beef with anyone these days, but yeah, like Roy was just stirring the pot, being like, yo, you hear what he said about you? And I was like, oh, let's go, you know? And for some reason that just brought us closer together, because then after that whole ordeal, like I was like, you know what, I'm gonna leave this friend group, hang out with different people, and Roy and I got to know each other a lot through what he mentioned, like the library. Another piece of context, like the library was like such a social hub in high school, at least where we went to high school, which is a bit odd to think about. Like I guess a lot of things in our high school are a bit odd too. Like the most popular kids were band kids. Jocks were like hit or miss on how popular or how cool you were. It was like going to a mostly Asian high school kind of shifts your expectations and perceptions really differently. But taking a step back, that was my biggest time for me to get to know you. And I think I got to know you more as like someone who's like really just like deep thinker and like really just like figuring life out. And I feel like your methodology was just like really much like, I'm gonna try shit, see what works, what doesn't. And like I think it was something I respected a lot about you, just kind of like putting yourself out there and like experiencing life a lot, and like not being really scared like of what people thought, despite maybe internally you think is very people pleasing. I felt like compared to a lot of high schoolers who are really self-conscious, like I didn't see that from you, and I think it was like a very like attractive part of you as a person and as a friend.
Damn.
So that's my first impression. Like, well, that's second impression, because first impression I was like, this guy's a dumbass, bro. I'm kidding. Yeah.
Well, okay. So just quick background. Everyone like went to the same like elementary school. I went to like Almonte and Baldwin Park before that. So when I first came into middle school, everyone already had their friend groups. So I feel like the only way I could really make an impression was either to be funny or be obnoxious. Obviously, we know which route I went.
You're still a funny guy, though. Funny and obnoxious.
So, but yeah, okay. That was very nice, though. Thank you.
For sure. But yeah, how about Michael? Where does Michael enter the mix? I think you guys got to know each other sooner, from what I remember, because you guys were track stars in high school. But anyway, they did track in high school, though. They did track, cross country. So yeah, what was your guys' impression of each other? How did you guys meet each other?
I don't know. I might need some help here. I just feel like my memory is a little fuzzy. But I remember, I think I met you in track. So track was like a spring sport, right? So didn't meet you till like the latter half of our freshman year. I think also like you went to the library too, right? Or
towards just after track.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of the people in track would just hang out at the library.
Right.
So we would just chill after there till like, you get picked up. You pretend like you're studying at the library. You're really not. You're just having fun. But I think actually my first impression of you is, not to out you, but I always say this, but it was before actually high school. I think in 8th grade, that's when I started using Facebook for the first time. I created an account, and people can vouch for this, but I got a friend request from this guy I never even knew. And it was this guy, and his profile photo at the time was him with his middle finger up, curling a dumbbell, right? And I was like, oh, yo, who the fuck is this
Wait,
guy?
that wasn't even you though, right?
No, it wasn't.
No,
you.
it was him.
Okay,
That was
okay.
later at a time. You know, it was someone else that looked like him. But
That's true.
that was a different guy. But this was him. So my first impression of this dude was like, okay, accept.
You're like, I like your style, man.
I really didn't know who that was, and I was like, oh, I'm not. That's who my first impression of like who Ruoyu was.
Yeah.
That's
But I don't think it was until I felt like we did interact before before spring though.
Maybe. Through something?
Yeah, right. Because I feel like there was some. I feel like I forgot how we were introduced, but it might have been through a mutual friend.
Okay.
Through someone.
Yeah, that might be right.
Yeah, it might have been. I mean, that's definitely how we got a little bit closer. Was definitely through a third party, who we both were respectively close to at the time, and that was primarily through track. So I will say that's probably how we got to know each other a little more. I remember there was in one instance where you and another friend were, I guess, skipping the workout.
Yeah.
There was an issue going on or something, and then you guys ended up just coming to the library where track practice was already done.
Yeah.
And we just ended up hanging out there, and it became pretty chill from there, I feel like. So
That's true.
yeah. I don't know. That was my perspective of the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably have a whole different...
I just like goofy people. I just like chill people, so I feel like it's just natural for all of us to like kick it. I just don't like people who like take themselves too seriously and like, this guy don't now.
Yeah. It's been a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like track and library are like the common threads there.
Yeah.
You just got to know each other and see each other more through.
I mean, we were in the same English honors class, but we met through the library.
Yeah.
Bro, you were weird.
I was. There's actually... I'll find the receipts of this, but I remember one of the most...
Oh, it's public somewhere.
Oh, it's public still. Anyone can find it if you're friends with me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or even not. I think it's public. But one of my most iconic memories, and I guess this ties into my impression of Michael and where Michael and I met each other, is I met him at the library through another mutual friend, like family friend. And we ended up like talking, and I was
family friend, come on the show.
Yeah. You know who you are. But basically, like I remember I was very socially awkward. I didn't know how to talk to people in general. And I remember we had like a few brief exchanges, and then I saw you on Facebook, and I guess this is a common thread of Facebook was a dominant like social media when we were like growing up.
Yeah. And this is when you like you wouldn't just message people privately on Facebook. This is when you posted on their wall,
posts,
and it was like I'm gonna converse with you just merely through wall posts. So it's like I post on your wall, you post on mine, just back and forth.
It's basically what your aunt does now. Yeah. Like what your aunties do now, but we pioneered it. You know, like we ended up doing the wall posts, and my very first one to Michael was, "Hey man, good meeting you at the library. Your skin reminds me of soy sauce chicken." Haha. And then just like that. And I just got like a bunch of comments bombarding the post. Where people were just like, "Ryan, you're so fucking awkward.
Yeah,
like, why would you say that?"
Legit, like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
And I got that. I remember getting notifications like, I met this dude at the library, and all his posts on my wall was soy sauce chicken. Hey, you're that dude, soy sauce chicken from the library. It was like super cool to meet you. And then we just started going back and forth. Yeah,
it's catchy though. And at the time, like Michael, like was a lot darker because track. And so he was like always in the sun.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty apt description, but yeah, it wasn't the smoothest start to a friendship, but I think like I don't know, you got to know me better and realize that I was, not that awkward, but still pretty awkward. And I don't know, like when it shifted, it might have been around like basketball camp. Remember?
Perhaps.
When we had basketball camp with.
The summer after freshman year.
Yeah, I think that was a really chill time because then part of the social awkwardness is like there's certain parts that are funny, but just unintentionally. So,
yeah, that summer was rough. You remember?
Yeah.
You spoiled two major blockbusters.
Oh. No. Okay. Let me defend myself. Okay.
You spoiled The Dark Knight Rises, major blockbuster, and you spoiled Skyfall.
Yeah. Okay, were those that bad of spoilers?
Yes, they were very bad.
Oh, it was a huge one.
Okay. Taking a step back now, do you think that you would have kind of guessed that would have happened in?
No. I mean, I don't care. I don't want to come in with any like
expectations,
right? And it's just like that was like boom, this is it. Even I was like, bro, you just ruined two. And then later with what is it, Infinity War? Like,
Oh yeah, wasn't it crazy when that
he was
snap
like, "Hey, do
happened?
you know what this means yet?" And I was like, "Bro."
Oh yeah. Okay,
I don't know, man.
okay,
It's just
but
snapping in your face.
That's what I'm saying.
man, everyone's just getting halved. Every snap, bro. It's just. Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't spoil things now though. I feel like I've been pretty good about like the new movies that you've watched. I also don't think we talk about movies much, so there's not much chance to spoil it.
Yeah.
But as a public apology to you, I'm sorry about spoiling the biggest blockbuster.
I don't want your public apology.
of 2015. Just for the record, it's on camera. It's legally binding. That's my perspective, though. Pretty much, Swiss House Chicken library to, basketball camp. That was my memory.
So that was like early on high school, right?
Pretty early on. It was like end of first year. Because second half is when we were in the same
Second
class
half
together.
we had DS together. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah. So I guess we all like kind of cross paths. Like, if you just put a timeline out of the 4 years, we all kind of cross paths the first year. But I don't think it was really like solid friendship until like junior, senior year. So the third or fourth year, right?
Yeah, because we didn't really hang out all together. Like, I think we kind of had our own groups, and then it kind of converged into like we just started hanging out together a lot. Because I knew you guys were good friends, and then we were good friends because that one finals week we just hung out, played basketball. Yeah, we just went all around Arcadia. I remember we just ate 7-Eleven every day, which. I mean, granted, we did every day regardless, but yeah, I don't know. When did we like actually like start hanging out? Like, what was the point in time?
I mean, we gotta shout out Market Grill. Market Grill is huge.
Oh, Market Grill, best sandwiches.
Yeah, sandwich place in Monrovia. Yeah. So we got Market Grill. I don't remember how that happened.
I think so. What happened is I think I hung out with you both individually. Yeah. You guys hung out individually as well. But I don't think it was until, like, even our sophomore year, like, Ruoyu and I hung out a lot freshman year, and then sophomore year, we didn't hang out as much, but we were still in similar circles. Yeah. Like, just, we would show up, we'd be at the same events and stuff. So, we kind of still talk, but not as often. And then we kind of separated into different circles. But I think junior year, we had math analysis together, and that was where, I would see him every day. I gave him a kiss too. So we got pretty close.
What's the story behind that? Yeah.
Basically, we had our math analysis class. It's basically pre-calc. We had there was a day where we were supposed to have a quiz in class, and I was not ready for this quiz at all. So I was like, oh shit, I'm totally screwed for this quiz. And I guess the teacher, our professor at the time, was like, oh, we're pushing this quiz till tomorrow. Yeah. And I thought I heard her correctly, but I was like, maybe I misheard. So I asked Ruoyu, and she was like, and Ruoyu was like, yeah, the quiz is into tomorrow or something. Yeah. Confirmed it. And I got so happy that I was like, was going to do one of those things where, like you put your hand on his neck and then kiss my hand. Yeah. But I was so excited, my hand didn't make it that far. So I literally just kissed him on the neck in the middle of class. Right after it, I was just like, oh shit. He was like, what the fuck? We're just like starstruck for a moment, just like, what just happened?
And that's the moment you guys got even closer.
But also
the sensualness of it.
Well, that was one of the instances, and actually through that class we went to that Project Suit Up thing, which is like they made it seem like it's like a professional camp that they host out of USC, and they make it seem like it's a very competitive selection process. Supposedly, I don't know what the criteria were in getting selected, but Ruoyu and I applied, and ultimately we were accepted. And we went to the USC together, and basically, you undergo interview prep, resume building, all these certain things. I think they actually switched. The company became like Skillify or something else. I don't remember what it's called. Something Skill something. One of these companies. But it was an opportunity where we actually bonded a little more after that. And then I think probably through that, we had already been hanging out, and then I was like, why not we just hang out all together?
Yeah, because we all knew each other. But it was one of those things where it's like, I'm done hanging with Ruoyu. Ruoyu's hanging with Michael now. Yeah. It's like, hey, isn't it more time efficient if we just merge?
I think so. And I actually think we even got closer senior year. Yeah, because we had is it, what class was that? Econ? AP, no, not AP. CompGov. And basically, we parked together in the morning every day. On campus. So
was that the year you guys were like moving your car? Like,
so I straight up asked the professor. Remember that? I was like, "Hey, can I leave? I have to move my car." And he was just like, Just go. He was like, this kid's so dumb. You ask me to move your car.
But you ask it every day, though.
Yeah, I mean, I had to move my car every 2 hours because so there's certain days I would come late, right? So I'd have to move my car. And I'd be like, Roy, you want to join me? So we like dip out and move my car sometimes. And
it's a good life skill, though. I feel like that prepped you for living in SF. Because in SF, that's the same thing. You move your car everywhere.
Yeah, you know? Brutal.
Oh, man. Yeah, dude, this is bringing back a lot of memories, too. Because I think when you guys were mentioning, like, how you guys did Project Suit Up, I remember talking to you guys after that. And, like, you guys, it was the same feeling of, like, remember when we went to Palm Springs and the guy got us on the timeshare? Yeah. I felt like you guys had the same vibe, but, like, just 10 years earlier of, like, man, we got.
Yeah, because it wasn't even useful, I feel like.
No, but I guess it was if you needed something to put on your resume and you can, embellish a bit, make it into something bigger than it was. And, there were, like, I remember you had, like, certain questions. We did mock interviews, right? And you had certain questions about, like, what it was like to become an accountant. And they had an actual accountant there that you could ask, right? Yeah. Granted, he said, like, dude, it's a very dark path, and it didn't stop you. But
you just tell a bunch of high schoolers this. Like,
but I guess, I mean, I don't know if that was helpful, but, you got to talk to, like, a real professional. And it's rare, I feel like, to have that at the high school level.
That's true.
Granted, Arcadia had a lot of resources that many other schools didn't have just because of the sheer size and, donations. But I feel like even some colleges don't necessarily have that opportunity of, like, being put in front of actual working professionals who are in certain fields. And, like, a primary, like, if you're a non-target school for certain industries, they don't recruit on campus, and then it makes your life a little more difficult.
And I think that's the unsaid thing, too, about, like, very academic high schools. They focus a lot on your test scores, your GPA, and all the things about getting to college. But I think it's the thing of getting to the next step, like what you mentioned, right? Like, not even understanding, like, target schools for certain industries, like, for example, when you work in banking, like, certain schools are typically recruited from.
Yeah.
And then also, like, understanding, like, what's actually important in terms of networking and getting to know people. I think that's something that wasn't emphasized enough. And I think that you're kind of sprinting once you get to, like, college to figure out, oh, shoot, I should get to know these people. I should get to build up these skills. And, like, the biggest thing of being, like, just socially aware and, like, being able to connect with people. Like, you kind of mentioned it earlier of, like, how, people just like being around people who are, like, chill and, like, people you can hang out with, It's, like, the whole thing of, like, people don't take it too seriously, but can when you need to. And I think that's one thing that I kind of wish we learned more in high school. But I guess that's a good point you brought up, like, how that program at least gave you that perspective. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious. Did you have a different perspective of, I guess, two things? One, Project Suit Up, and then two, me kissing you on the neck.
let's ask the high priority one first. Let's do the Project Suit Up. And the neck kiss.
I mean, do you remember, like, we were looking through, like, because you had to, like, sign the, like, terms and conditions before you go. One of the terms and conditions, like, obviously it's in USC, so, like, I guess the area isn't great, but they put some, like, if you get, like, physically harmed,
release
and, like,
of liability, right?
Release of liability.
It's a waiver, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
But the phrasing was so strange. It was like, if someone beats you up, like, don't come after us.
So it's, like, very specific.
And we're, like, 16, 17. We're just like, yo.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think I can see those events being helpful because, like you said, at the end of the day, it's whatever you put into it. So it's a networking event. If we really wanted to, we go to each one of those participants, get their number, reach out to their moms, like, can you give me an internship?
Yeah.
But I guess I just also, me personally, I wasn't in the right mindset to, like, I guess use it. It was more just like, okay, I'll put something on my resume.
Yeah.
So there's that. For the kissing thing, I mean, I was like, I was happy. I think, no. I was happy about the test. I'm also happy about the affection.
Clarify.
But I guess I was just more confused than anything because I didn't realize the hand thing. And then I think you explained it later, but I was like, what just happened? I'm like...
You felt the lips on your neck, right?
Like,
was it like a, I don't know you like that, bro? Or I want to know you like that, bro?
No, I think we were there at that point. I mean, I was like, why am I wet here?
It wasn't that wet of a
sloppy.
It wasn't sloppy. It was just a little peck.
But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Oh man, that's so funny, dude. So how did it evolve from there? So there was the math anal test. You guys did Project Suit Up.
Yeah.
There was the kiss. What happened after for you guys to get even closer?
It was like a reality TV show. Like, what happened after the kiss? Like, how did you guys?
Yeah, progress? I know. Find out next season.
Yeah. I mean, I think So I guess like for background on myself, like in high school, I feel like I was kind of a floater. Like I feel like people who grew up in middle school, elementary school together, they always had like big groups of friends because obviously like parents set them up, or like just being the nature of being around certain people for so long gives you that kind of established connection. So since I never really had a group, it just felt kind of nice. Like okay, these people were like people I really enjoyed talking to, enjoyed hanging out. I think the more we did those market grow runs, or the more times we hung out at the library, or just went to the mall and did silly stuff, like I don't know, it just felt nice to like feel like okay, like I have like my little home here. Like I feel like I don't really need to like feel excluded because high school is kind of like a treacherous place, bro. Like
Yeah.
so just to have like people in your corner and like people who like you for you, where I don't feel like I need to become anything or be anyone, was nice. So I think from there, because I felt that like support, I was like, okay, I can give back to this relationship, this connection.
Dang, that's really well said. And I think it echoes a lot of the sentiment I had as well, right? Where I felt like it was like because of the whole people pleasing thing, like I was always around people and always had very surface level connections with like a lot of people. But I think that what I really felt, and I think obviously it's confirmed through us still being close friends to this day, is that I didn't really have people I really like got and understood it could be real with and could be real back with me. And I felt like it was just a product of my mentality at the time, but also just my understanding friendships or what I even viewed friendships as. I think like I really learned a lot just being friends with you guys, and I guess it's just more like point for later of just like how to be a better friend, a better person. But I think at the time too, like I felt that very similar thing of like I built up a lot of good like ability of like talking to people, and I think we all did through high school because we were all like in different groups and like interact with different people through like track or like music or like different academic things or in our class or sports, right? But I think that like that whole floater mentality, like you get good at that kind of like reacquainting yourself with people.
Yeah.
But I think there was also a point of like feeling like, oh, it's a bit like lonely. Like when you think about like people like eating lunch, right? Like I feel like I never really had a consistent group I hung out with for lunch. And I think looking back on it now, I realize like, I like maybe one or two people from like each group, but I don't like the whole group. Like I don't like how it's like an all or nothing model. It's kind of like when you subscribe to Netflix, right? Like maybe you want to watch one show, and I wish you just like pay for one show you just want to watch there. But it's kind of like that with like the friend groups. Like you like one or two people, but you kind of have to be okay with everyone else to hang out with them. Even though maybe like 80% of them you're like, yeah, I'm not really like chill with you like that.
Don't vibe.
And that was the hardest thing because like I felt like I didn't feel comfortable or confident of talking to the rest of the 80% of the groups. So just kind of like chilled, played basketball during lunch, walked around, and after a certain point, we just kind of went off and hung out in lunch or like just after school and stuff. And I think that helped a lot. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this, Michael? Like, how do you feel like
No, I think
your view on friendship was then?
I think the floater mentality kind of resonates with I think many people in high school because it can be quite cliquey, and I think for me personally, I wasn't really in any one group either. Like I went to school with a lot of these people, and I was tight with some people, but I feel like I managed a lot of my relationships like one-on-one or like one-on-two. So as you mentioned, like you're kind of closer with certain people in certain groups, and you kind of had to be chill with the entire group to be able to hang out with those people. But I feel like there's certain people that I would just hang out with like one-on-one, and they were part of a bigger group, but I didn't necessarily like, not that I didn't like everyone in that group, but I just didn't necessarily felt like I fit in. So I ended up like kind of just trying to be but being a guy who was just like relatively chill with people, but never really feeling like they belonged to one particular group.
Yeah, it sounds like a just common theme for all of us.
Yeah.
But I like that too because I think it's obvious in the friendships you do keep that like they're deeper and closer. Like I think back on it where it's like, like when you're like signing yearbooks, like senior year, you're like, oh, we'll never stop being friends. The moment you're not in a class in summer, you're like, oh, yo, who is this guy? Who's this chick? Like I don't know these people anymore.
I think that applies like with, I don't know. I think it comes with maturity, but I think that applies with like college relationships, right? Because a lot of relationships built in college are also like, convenience based.
It's true.
If you're not at the same stage of life, obviously you're around the same age, but I mean like same stage of life as in like, let's say working, let's say looking to get married, having kids, like if you're not in that same stage, and I think it applies across like all ages, right? Is that it's going to be harder to interact with someone, and it's even harder to connect with them. And I realize this even like if you're talking about like family, let's say some of your family, they start having kids. Let's say you have like cousins who start having kids or siblings. The things you used to talk about, you probably won't be able to talk about as much anymore because now they have like another being they have to look after.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's 24/7, right? It's like maybe they're physically present, but mentally their eyes are always tracking their kid, right?
It's priorities.
It's a priority thing.
Yeah,
but that's kind of a difference of like stage of life, but maybe you're the same age, or if you're twins, or, you know, maybe they're a little older, a little younger.
Yeah.
But I feel like the mentality is different. The mindset's different. Their priorities, as you mentioned, are different. And because of that, it's a little bit harder to connect in the same ways you used to. So if you think about that in the frame of like a college background, you know, everyone's same age, same like carefree kind of lifestyle, but like focused on academics as well, focused on professionalism, focused on social aspects as well. And it kind of all blends together in, you know, these activities that you're able to do, you know, go out at 2 a.m. for food. Right, versus like, you know, once you're working and you have work the next day, you don't necessarily do the same thing.
Right.
True. Yeah, it's really interesting because you bring up like a lot of things that are just contextual, right? Like,
Yeah.
You're in the same context
Of course.
as each other.
Yeah.
But what do you think separates, I guess, like, you know, those really close friends where, you know, there are those friendships where it's beyond the context, and I guess part of this episode is exploring that as well, because we've been in such different contexts, kind of often different life stages and. Well, similar life stages, but different places and different contexts, at least in some dimensions, right? Whether it's location or kind of what we're grinding on, whether it's like a busy job, or like family stuff going on, right? But I don't know. What do you feel like, I don't know, has rooted you in those friendships with, you know, friends from like college or after college or, you know, from childhood like us? Like, I don't know. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
It's not like meant to be like, oh, we'll give a super wise answer. I'm just curious for you guys. Like,
it's not water cooler talk.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know if you want to go.
No, go ahead.
I think it comes down to like, and I don't want to overuse this word's kind of overused, but like, you know, just being intentional, and that helps to a certain extent. But I feel like it's really difficult when life circumstances change. And there are often times that I find myself with certain friends, and maybe even with you two as well. Like, you know, we're all at a certain point, we're all in different locations, right? And it becomes difficult. We don't necessarily talk every single day. And even so, more so when we were in school, right? We didn't really talk every day, but when, you know, it was vacation or break or anything, it just pick up where you left off, right? So there's kind of those like pick up where you, and I don't want to say grab and go kind of thing because it doesn't sound as like
grab and go. Hit it, then quit it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound.
I'm kidding.
It doesn't sound great for a friendship perspective, but it's nice to know that like nothing really changes.
Yeah. And
you both, or not both, but like you all care about each other deeply at the end of the day, and care enough to get caught up to speed with that person's life, and be able to treat them as if nothing has happened, even if there are, you know, some significant milestones that have happened since the last time you've seen each other. But not that happens anymore. I mean, we try to make it for our significant milestones, but I'm just saying, like, you know, in a college context, it was a little more difficult for us to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But being able to pick up where you left off, I think really helped wonders.
Yeah.
I don't agree, disagree.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to think, like, I don't know if this is just my own personal way of thinking about it, but like, do different types of friendships have their own like measure of what makes them a good friend? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't, just because like you guys are my close friends, but I wouldn't hold you guys as a barometer to what I think other people should treat me, right? Like, you know, I have other friendships that I feel like we have a different nature of friendship, but I still think they're a good friend, right? Equally.
Right,
so
right.
I don't know. I think it's just kind of nuanced for me.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's a really good point.
I honestly think that, and maybe this is I don't know if this is a transactional way to think about relationships, because I'm trying not to think about it that way, for at least the purpose of this conversation, 100%. Yeah. But like, do you think that each friendship you have, you give and you get something different, right? So it's like, and that is a transactional way of thinking about things, but maybe it's a way to segment your friendships, as you mentioned, to where you have different relationships with people. Not all friendship is the same.
Right.
So like, you know, if you're getting something some meaning in your life in a different aspect of life than with another friend, and then you're giving a different part of yourself to that person, as opposed to another one of your friends. And maybe you're all close, but you just have different levels of closeness.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think that's what I was trying to say. Like, again, I think I was reserved about saying it just because it sounds transactional.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just trying to be more fair. Like, I don't want someone to feel like in order to be my friend, they need to be my preconceived notion of what a friend is, right? Like, I don't think that's
like,
fair.
there's a standard and a bar you hit.
I
feel like, in a sense, that feels transactional, too. Like, it's hard because I guess, like, the transactional piece of this, in thinking about it, is when you actively are thinking like this.
I mean, it's when you're trying to analyze it, like we're trying to do now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's hard because I think it's, like, really, like, the feeling, that you have around someone. But also, like, I think as I've gotten older, too, I think a big thing I've realized just values are a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of values, like, everything flows out of that, right? In terms of, obviously people make mistakes. People go through life situations. Different things come up, as we talked on the last episode, of, like, mental health issues and, like, different traumas and life things. But I think it's, like, values are really guiding and really, like, bring you closer together, where, like, I feel like that's something I think more about, where instead of, like, is it a bar, like, what am I giving, what am I getting? Like, do we align on, like, certain core things that we just want out of life, and, like, what we appreciate and respect about other people? And I think, the rest of it are just kind of, like, details, right? Like, implementation details of the friendship.
Right.
So it's a very engineering word, right?
Yeah.
But
those core things might be different among all your friends.
Exactly.
So then it's still kind of like managing each individually. Maybe you're getting and giving something different in return across all those relationships.
I agree. And I think that the thing is, like, that is true, but I think that it's like an unconscious thing, like, where like, oh, to this friend, like, I know I'm a better listener in this case, so I can be one to listen and lend an ear, right? Versus in this friendship, this person's a better listener, and, like, I'm able to contribute this aspect of, like, that value or my perspective. Like, I'm agreeing.
Or give money to your friends.
Yeah,
or give any money. It's same with, like, love languages, right? Do you cater your relationships to people who have different love languages and show and give love and receive love differently?
Because we're all different people, right? Like, they like to be appreciated in different ways, right? Like, some people really love, like, acknowledging, hey, I appreciate that so much, the words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And other friends just, like, for example, us just coming here and playing 2K. Like, it's a very, like, different experience. But I think that's with any relationship, right? Like, knowing who you're actually in that relationship.
It takes emotional intelligence to a certain degree to be able to navigate relationships. And that's why I think it's so important, in your personal life and even, in your job search and professional life as well. It just, if you can be able to cater yourself, and not that you're, like, more like a chameleon and, but more so that you're able to understand, put yourself in other people's shoes and try to maybe bring out the best parts of you that are still part of you, but in that scenario would help them understand you or help you understand them. Being able to do that and discern which one is which, that would help you build relationships and maintain them down the line.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you said earlier, like, if people are in different life stages and you're friends with someone who is a new parent, right? Like, you can't expect them to respond to every text message.
No, of course not.
So, like, obviously, like you said, it's just different love language for different people at different stages in their lives.
Yeah. I think things change, but I think just that, like what you mentioned about the bond still, right? It's like, despite these things, you can still be close, because life's just going to get busier. Like, we have so many new responsibilities, and that's just going to go up with time, right? Like, being, now you're a dog parent, Ruoyu, like, really cute dog, Mochi.
Yeah. Shout out Mochi.
Like, like, that's already something where we're seeing that. And I think same with, like, dog parent friends and, like, other people who are, like, on the next stage of getting married, having kids, etc. And are, like, taking care of aging parents, right? Like, I think that, like, picking up where you left off and just understanding, like, there's still that, like, bond and, like, building on that, and I think investing your time and energy into still maintaining that, like, I think it goes back to what you're saying about the intentionality too. Michael. Like, I think it really matters that you're still keeping it going despite you being in different places, and I think that's why it feels like it picks up where it left off, because you're not just letting it, like, cut and then you jump 2 years, like a jump cut in an anime. Like, you're actually building it, but what you're paying into it, well, in terms of investing it into the relationship, is your time, your energy, and just the sentiment of, hey, I still care about you. Like,
Can you elaborate more on that jump cut? I'm just trying to get a more well-rounded and diverse audience base.
Jump cuts are
Let's explore the jump cut a little more.
Okay, let's explore jump cuts. I don't think it's just an anime thing.
Yeah.
And also maybe it's just not the right term. I'm a new anime fan, so don't crucify me, please.
Don't take the fans away, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Sorry, I'm a very hardcore anime fan.
Yeah.
But basically,
No, they don't want you anymore.
when you go from like a certain time and place, a scene, right, and then boom, you're in another scene. No explanation of what happened. You're just kind of there, and plot holes just kind of covered. I feel like some friendships or some relationships can be like that, where you're like, just imagine like the people you haven't talked to since middle school, right?
Yeah.
And they hit you up, they're like, yo, you're a real estate agent now? Like, I'm trying to buy a house. Like, that type of interaction, right? Where you're kind of like, oh, that was abrupt, you know?
Yeah.
Versus like someone who you haven't seen in like 2 years because they're abroad, right? In Vietnam doing like a eat, pray, love type of thing, right? But they come back in your life, like, you're still going to be like, okay, well, they still messaged me and gave me updates while they're gone. It's not like we're jumping into this new scene. It's not abrupt. You know?
There's build up and
There's build up to it. You're investing your time and energy into building a relationship still, right?
Disclaimer though, if you were a real estate agent, I don't think you'd turn away business. So
Yeah. Okay, bad example. But you know what I mean?
So if
right?
that situation applies to you, don't let it stop your grind. Put your pride aside, let that person back in your life, and take the fee. So
yeah,
it's business. Is business.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I
fair
appreciate
advice,
that perspective. I did have a question. Maybe not so a question. I do want to know your thoughts on this, but I feel like I've talked with both of you about this before, of how, in college and previously I had viewed relationships in a certain way, and it's from a perspective of like the toll it takes on you as an individual. So like,
in what way are you
like
do you mean that?
I remember was it like you guys play Pokemon? You've played Pokemon before.
Yeah.
Or any game where you have a HP bar, like a life bar, right? Like, do you manage each of your relationships in a way you give them its own HP bar? Like, you and that Pokemon, you and that person have your own relationship health bar. And, the more love and time and attention you put into it, it gains life back versus, it detracts. Or is it more so like you as a person have one life bar as yourself and all these, interactions kind of exhaust you to a certain extent, and then you kind of need to recharge and build yourself back up? So it's more so like how you view things. And I felt like me as a person, I was in the latter camp. Like I felt like I wasn't as good as managing relationships, wasn't as good at that part in being like individually focused on certain people and growing that relationship versus like just trying to look out for, not look out for me, but understand that I needed the energy to give positive energy back.
Yeah.
And it took a toll on me because I like to think that I'm relatively extroverted, but I also need like time for me to focus and recharge. And I just like wanted to hear your perspectives. I don't know if you heard that from me before or you haven't, but like I'd love to know what your thoughts on that are.
It rings a bell. And I guess like, I was thinking it was more so kind of tied to like, obviously when friends are going through tough situations, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely is more emotionally draining because of how present you have to be an actual supportive friend. But I get the point of what you're saying, and I think maybe my like very knee-jerk reaction to this is I feel like I'm definitely much more in like the it's kind of a cop-out answer because I think it's a bit of both, but I'll explain what I mean by a bit of both. I think you have like your own like reservoir of like energy that you can give, right? And it really depends on like if you're more extroverted versus more introverted, and I think that really ties into the social battery and the amount of energy you have to give.
And if you can compartmentalize like to that extent, right? This is a separate relationship. Not that you're going to sever it, but I'm going to sever my energy I'm giving to that relationship and focus everything on this person that I'm that needs me now, versus like taking it all in at once.
Yeah, it's hard because I guess like, like to your point, right? Like it's not so much like you're just severing it. Like maybe let me take a step back. Like what I'm trying to say here is like you have so much energy that you could draw from and you distribute it how you want to, right? So I still think you have a finite amount of energy to give in those friendships or relationships, whether with family, your significant other, and also friends, and you portion it based on, just priorities, right? But I think as you go one level deeper, it's kind of like, I think there is like kind of a relationship health bar between each person, right? Just because of certain things you may have gone through with certain friends, right? Certain traumas you have with certain friends take more time and energy to resolve and work through with each other, and you can build back stronger, right? versus a friend where maybe you had never had really much conflict, or maybe just more on like just chill terms, you're not super close, versus other friends where they're going through a tough time, right? Like, I think there still is that relationship HP bar that draws from that higher amount, but I don't feel like it's that mechanical of a thing, because at the end of the day, the most important thing, like it tells me, is that really optimizing for like you being in a good place so you could be there for other people.
Yeah.
And I think I really operate on that principle where I know that I'm a varying level of close to different people just because of how friendships are, right? You can't be 100% like best friends with everybody, because I feel like there's some people who are like, that's my best friend, that's my best friend, that's my best friend, and everyone that's a friend is a best friend, right? And I don't really view it like that, where it's like, yeah, there are people that I'm close to and there are people that I'm not as close to, but we're still friendly and we're still friends, you know? But I think that you can't say it's the same thing, which is why I think the HP bar of like different type of friendships makes sense in this regard. But I don't think it's a very conscious thing to be like, oh, I'm like ranking these things, because again, it's not a transactional thing.
Well, maybe subconsciously you do it, right?
Maybe,
Yeah.
It's interesting though. It's an interesting question, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's like both. Like, I was thinking like that's a cop-out answer, but I think it really is both. But also going back to like the introverted extrovert, I feel like me personally, I view myself as a shy extrovert, where I think I do gain energy from hanging out. Like, for example, when we used to hang out and like just talk in the Honda Fit, you know, like I feel like I could talk for hours. Like, that gives me energy, gives me life. But when I'm in a new environment, or when I'm talking to people I'm not comfortable with, or I don't know necessarily how I fit in social dynamic wise, I feel like I drain energy so fast. Yeah. And so my HP bar in this instance would drain.
What do you think drains it for you? Because they're both like technically social situations. Like,
is it anxiety?
It might be anxiety. Like, I mean,
where you fit into this puzzle,
right? I mean, I probably like, right, like, so when I'm hanging out with you guys, I feel like I know my role, like I know, you know, or I know who I am. I don't.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable, right? Whereas, like, let's say in a business setting where I don't know how cordial, you know, how formal I need to be, and I'm always like thinking about this every moment, that just takes a lot of my energy away.
Some people thrive off of that.
Right.
Like, being in that environment, you know, like you're a fish out of water. Like, I don't know anyone here. I'm going to make 1,000 friends to the surface level, of course. But, like, you know, that excites them, just being in that environment.
Like, being able to figure out that. And, like, make those connections. Yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying. Because I know some people who are, like, very extroverted. And that's their thing of, like... I feel like there's a bit of the self-perspective of, like, I'm the most interesting person in the room as well. Yeah. That probably feeds into it being less anxiety and more like, oh... They're getting to know me, you know? Yeah. Not saying that's every person who's very extroverted. But,
so you're saying, like, narcissist.
No, I mean, I feel like narcissist is a bit extreme, right?
Like, it's like, I don't want to get to know these people. I just want to tell these people my life story.
Well, I mean, there's some people who I feel like balance it, where it's like they know they're interesting and they're confident that way, like very confident, but they also can listen. I don't think it's like a binary thing. But I guess, you probably see more people who are more, like, self-centered about it than they are, like, balanced about it, right? I feel like it takes a special type of person to, like, be like, I know I'm a great person, but I also know these people are great too. Like, it's a perspective thing more than it is like, you know, are they narcissists or not, you know?
Yeah. I think also, like, I guess as a counter to that point, when someone's confident and can relieve everyone of, like, their own anxiety, I feel like it makes everyone like rest at ease, like more at ease.
Gotcha.
Whereas, not that necessarily to say that anxious people are, you know, whatever negative, you know, adjective. I think when people are anxious, it just maybe bounces off other people. So I'm just saying, I think there's a fine line. I think you can be both, like, confident, but not necessarily a narcissist.
I agree with that.
No, I agree with that.
I'm not saying all confidence is, like, stems from narcissism.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, sometimes they go hand in hand. Yeah. And sometimes the confidence helps narcissists be narcissists. So
it's a life force.
You know, like, if you exude confidence and you're doing it because you're a narcissist, like, you know, it can help you get very far in your life. Yeah. It really can. It can. I've seen some narcissists go really far in life.
I think it's that extreme confidence though, because I think it's kind of crazy thinking about you just watch those social experiments on YouTube, right? Where, like, confidence gets you so far and, like, it shapes how people perceive you, which is a cycle that feeds in itself, because if they perceive you in that way where they're like, oh man, that dude's the shit, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe it, then you're, like, building yourself back up, and, like, you're going to the moon, you know? You're bullshitting yourself.
LeVar Ball mentality. Speak it into existence.
Yeah. Hey, but his boys are talented though.
Yeah.
They got the talent
He's a great
to
dad.
begin with. Yeah,
He's a great
he
dad.
actually is.
Yeah.
I'm changing my opinion.
He got 67% of his kids in the NBA. So he got them all money. So yeah.
That's a weird way to say everyone but Jello.
I guarantee you. I mean, this is a tangent, but I guarantee you. I mean, maybe not guarantee, but I believe that if his two brothers get together, they'll get him on the team.
So basically,
Like if Lonzo and LaMelo,
Thanasis.
yeah,
situation.
like if nothing against Thanasis, but if Thanasis can have a guaranteed spot in the NBA,
Yeah.
LiAngelo Ball can have a spot. Like especially if, I mean, Lonzo's had like injuries and whatnot, but I hope he recovers and still can become a decent player.
Right.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
But just having LaMelo and Lonzo on the same team, if the one concession you have to make is not, I don't want to say concession, but as a GM, if the one concession you have to make to get these two ball boys together is to have a third ball bro,
right.
small
Not
price
bad.
to pay.
Good for the media though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lonzo to the Hornets.
I know. It'd be wild.
Yeah.
All right. I guess jumping back to the main topic though. Yeah, I feel like these are all really good perspectives we've kind of given on just kind of like our friendship meters and also like our perspectives on just different types of friends and closeness. I guess like what I'm trying to understand now is, I don't know. What do you think is something you view about yourself in like those friendships? Like what type of role do you feel like you play maybe like generally in those friendships? Because we talked about kind of like what you give and what you take in a friendship, right? Kind of just push and pull. But yeah, how do you view yourself in friendships actually?
Let me go. Yeah, go for it.
I feel I'm like kind of contradicting myself, but I think because I said, previously, I think different friendships and there are different levels of what you give to that friendship. But I think now I'm trying to normalize what I bring to a friendship, because I don't try to, treat different friends differently anymore. Like, oh, I think you're this type of friend, so I'll give you this.
Yeah.
I think I just try to be like my own version of myself to everyone. I just try to think about it less. I just try to be like, I try to give my core values to everyone that I think I'm friends with now, which I think is like just, I try to care about you, I try to support you, and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't try to do much balancing across friendships, I guess.
I really like what you said. Like you're kind of giving your best self and who you are. And I feel like one thing I thought about as you were talking is just kind of how it's a more maturing perspective, because it comes with a lot of self-awareness. Like you have to be aware of who you are as a person and how you want to represent yourself to the world. And I think that I've seen the same thing about myself. Like as you become more like certain about like the person I want to be and how I want to show up in the world, but more importantly for the people who matter most to me, it's really like the consistency of the person I am and being aware of like, hey, I have certain weaknesses I know very well about and certain things and strengths I know very well about, and I just want to make sure that that's a consistent thing people see as well.
That's right.
Yeah. So I really like what you mentioned. Yeah. But I think one thing I do have to say that I appreciate a lot about like being friends with you is I think just like how good of a listener you are. I think, and when you support people, it's very much like you're there, like giving people, your full attention, and like, I don't know, it's like very therapeutic in that way, like giving an ear to be like, okay, well, I'm validating like what I'm saying, I'm getting validated by it, and can better understand like what I need to do as a person to become a better person. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What about you, Michael? I'm curious.
What about me?
In terms of like
my perspective on?
Yeah. Like, yeah. Kind of
on
how do you show
myself
up in
or you
friendships? How do you show up as?
On myself?
Yeah, on yourself. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it'd be better for you to just speak on it, but because I feel like my thought in it is probably what I want to be ideally, but obviously I'm not that. So I feel like what I try to do in my friendships is like try to be present and give time and energy to people when I'm with them. And I'm not the best at like, texting back and forth and like saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Because, a lot of people like that and some people need that, right? And I understand that, but I feel like that's not always me being able to say that to a certain friend, even if like I am, thinking about them. to go out of my way and say that, I feel like it's just not necessarily me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's something I need to get better at. But I feel like, you know, when I'm hanging out with that person, or like we'll schedule a hangout or schedule a meetup, you know, just being there with and for that person in the moment, I feel like has been something I've been trying to, you know, be conscious of doing.
Mm-hmm. Like being present in like important things, or as people are going through things. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that's how I feel like you show up in our friendship, in terms of just like being someone who gives really good objective opinions and perspectives, but also being very supportive. Like I feel like it's always very refreshing hearing like your very honest and blunt takes on things, because I think that it helps me kind of recenter and like be like, okay, how would I think about this more objectively? But also like I understand that there's a lot of care behind like how you go about that, and like you prioritize showing up in things.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back is just like the love language, right? I don't think anyone can really fault you if your love language is, you know, not texting. Because I feel like at the end of the day, when I like, to your point, when we hang out with you, I feel like you're very present. And to Ryan's point, like, I think that's one of the coolest things I think about you is that, like, I don't want to use intentional because for some reason you don't like the word intentional.
We used it multiple times already.
No, it's not even about this podcast. It's about the fact that throughout college and throughout, I feel like everyone's like, I'm about intentional relationships. Be intentional. And this is maybe like just recruiting, like in terms of like, you know, not even recruiting for jobs, but like for RSOs, for orgs within your school. Everyone's like, you got to be intentional. Be your most intentional self. Be your truest self.
So it's a trigger word for you because you've heard it so
I don't know.
much. It's been abused. It sounds like in UW they abuse that word.
I don't want to say it's a trigger word, but I just don't want to become one of those people who says it all the time. But feel free to use it. I'm okay with it.
You need to be intentional how you use intentional.
Just, you know, don't unintentionally use intentional. If you're intentionally using intentional, then I got you.
Dude. Okay. You know,
I appreciate it.
I think, I just think when you give like your opinion and give your like feedback, it's, I wouldn't say intentional actually. I would say it's very well thought out. So when I think you give your opinion, I don't think there's bias there. I don't think there's anything other than logic and your care for myself, right? If you were giving advice to me on any situation, I feel like even if you gave me something I didn't want to hear, or you gave me a conflicting opinion on what I had, I wouldn't fault you for it, because I'm like, I don't think there's any malice in it. I think he has very logical points, and I think at the end of the day, I can feel that he cares about my end result. I don't think you're just there to like, you know, push whatever agenda or bias that you have. So to you know, echo your point, I think yes, you are very present, and like I think one thing, I'll never see you like really check your phone when we're hanging out, which I think is huge, you know. So I think that speaks to how present you can be. Yeah.
Totally.
I'm glad that's how it comes across. I mean, I'm trying, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think it shows. I think it's like, despite whatever context you have going on, I think it's like you making the time. Like if, like I've been in a situation of I've called you in crisis mode at like 2 a.m. and you're like, yo, let's talk. What's going on? And then I think it's like refreshing that no matter what time it is or what you're going through, even personally, like you're there and you're able to deal with it with like the objective perspective, but supportive, like I mentioned previously. But I think like that's one thing that like has just been the case for you like throughout, and I really appreciate like your willingness to always like just be there, you know. It's probably like large part due to like how you handle crisis in like banking, because like, you know, you're on call with your boss, your MD, being like, yo, can you get this shit done, and you're taking a shit, you know.
Yeah.
The homies call you, like, yes, boss. I'm kidding. Another thought I had too, and this is kind of taking it a different direction in terms of like showing up as a friend, but I think one thing I realized has helped me keep the consistency, and I think that's one thing I realized, like you mentioned, Michael, of like, you know, the type of person that's like more like will reach out and like hit people up and type of thing. I feel like I've seen myself become more like that, especially now that I'm just more balanced as a person. But I think one way that has helped me a ton is I just send everyone like reels. Like,
bro, I know.
Yeah, I just sent everyone Instagram reels.
He said, "Stop that shit."
Oh, they're that bad. Yo, they're fire though. Cooking reels, T-Pain singing without auto-tune, NBA highlights, Draymond Green punching stuff. Like, what's not funny, you know?
Bro, I got a calendar block on. at work. Review the reels that Ryan sent over and just respond to everyone individually.
Yeah, I feel like I'm worse than everyone's girlfriend at sending reels or TikToks. Like, I probably account for half the volume of my homies.
Yeah.
Like, they're probably like, damn, another reel? Like, not from my girlfriend, from Ryan, though. That's facts, though.
Ryan's my number one. It's not even my girlfriend.
You know, it's number one for everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I try to remain, you know? Number one for the homies. But, I mean, all joking aside, though, I feel like it's the type of thing where, like, you know, there is thought to it. I'm like, hey, like, there are things I think you guys would find funny or, like, relevant to things we talk about, like basketball or business or just, like, random shit happening. And I feel like, in a sense, it's actually brought me closer to people where it's like, hey, I'm thinking about you, but there's no, like, I don't have to write, like, I'm thinking about you. Because I think about sometimes where I feel like you writing, I'm thinking about you is a bit redundant. Because you're thinking about them. That's why you text them.
Right.
Why would you be like, yo, I thought about you? I'm guilty of it too. Like, I've done this shit before. But I'm like, probably gonna stop doing it. Because the thought was already there. That's why I texted you.
Right.
Yeah, but then don't you feel like that gets too much into your head? Like, it's like, I'm being too strategic with this. Like, oh, I sent this already. Didn't know I'm thinking about them. Versus just, like, free flow of thought. Like, hey, thinking about that one time we went out and, like, you bought me a burger and we split the burger and it was like a great time. You know, like, just like that. And then it's like, oh, he's thinking about me or she's thinking about me.
I do agree with that. I think maybe the point that you're making is more like the specific instance of what you thought about.
Yeah.
Not so much like just I'm thinking about you, period.
That too, though. Like, some people are just like that, right? Like, hey, I'm thinking about you. And then they're expecting you to follow up, and then you can have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, hey, just thinking about you.
Yeah.
Mailbox. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't need anything more from you. I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think does count, though. Like, it does make me feel warm just even reading those words. It is a good point. You know what? I'm gonna start doing it again. I was just stopped doing it a minute ago, and I'm reinstating this policy.
Let us know in the comments. DM us what you think. What you think he should do?
Yeah. Should I actually write down? I am thinking about you. I've been thinking about you. What's the exact thing I should? The exact wording. Past tense, present tense, or future fucking perfect tense? I don't know.
In next week's episode, we'll decide what career Ryan should choose. So vote in the comments. If you want Ryan to be a stripper, a teacher,
or both at the same time. It's possible.
Dicey.
It's dicey though.
But it can be done.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it, but I feel like
Yeah.
if you just blanket statement say like I'm thinking about you or I'm thinking about this time without really much prompting, I feel like I don't know. I don't really know what to give back. So I feel like you're just kind of like in my head. Like I feel like I owe like a debt of gratitude for you thinking about me. You know, unless it's to start a conversation or to have commentary on whatever you're thinking about. But if it's just like a blanket, I'm thinking about you. I just don't know how to take that. And I do see like the value of Ryan's side of like actually sending reels.
Yeah, like if you see a reel and it's like, oh, that reminds me of you. You would like this, Ben. I get that. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Except,
But I don't think like, if you're thinking about someone, you should retroactively go and find a reel you can send to them to let them know you're thinking about them. Right?
Like don't go back in
like
time.
If you're thinking about someone and you don't have a reel, like you can, if you want to like be forward and voice that you're thinking about them, just let them know.
Yeah.
Versus like going into shit, going on my
that
feet.
could be a shitty startup idea though for another episode.
Like thinking about someone, you type in a few
words and searches
few attributes about them, and then there's searches, and then it says this is a perfect reel send. Yeah.
Actually, real suggestion or like meme suggestions.
It's generative, bro. It's all. I mean, it's all.
Yeah, that's true. You make your own new ones too. Your new Draymond memes. There's been a lot of my feed recently. Yeah, but I think like maybe the more meta point here is just regardless of like how you say it, I think it's just if that sentiment gets across.
Yeah.
I think I realize like at least maybe because maybe I love feeling that of like you're checking in, that type of thing, and like I obviously have friends who are like different how they do it. Like we mentioned, Michael isn't so much that, but he's there when it's monumental moments and things that you need him for, and other friends are more like, hey, more regular about it. Like I do appreciate that the sentiment is there and that people can communicate in a way, and I think that's something I appreciate a lot about it too, because I feel like it's like maybe a general thing where maybe it's just harder for guys in general to communicate like, yo bro, like I miss you, that type of thing. I feel like some people might think it's a bit more emotional, but I feel like it's just a nice thing to be like, yo, like the homies are still thinking about me.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling, and like someone still cares you're alive,
Right.
Like, I mean, not to make it more of it, but like, you know what I mean? Just a feeling of like, oh, they appreciate that My presence is here.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's it from the questions I had about friendship. Like it veered off into a million different paths. I don't know. Anything else from you, Michael, or are you?
No, I just just thinking about that real thing. No, I think for me it's probably I'll send you jobs.
Yeah.
He's a
I'm
LinkedIn
thinking about
fiend.
you.
He's a
He
LinkedIn.
really does send me jobs though to apply to. I'm like,
Puts the exact reasons why. See, couple
Yeah.
years of experience, proficient in Excel. You know.
he's like, hey, I tailored your resume already for you. Just send it in.
So we got the omni-channel homies, bro. Homies on different type of social medias to let you know that I'm thinking about you.
You know.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I think that's also like a very common thing about Michael. Like, this is a fun quirk about Michael. Viewers may not know, but if you post anything on LinkedIn, but you don't post on any other social media, and you post on other social media, Michael will know the content of the one from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And he'll know when you switch jobs before you even switch jobs.
Yeah. He's a LinkedIn crawler. He pays for the premium that predicts your movement.
He's the web scraper.
Bro.
He's their search algorithm.
I promise you, I don't even have premium, bro. I'll be on LinkedIn casually, like, and it's like no, but I'll use like casually meaning like not meaning infrequently, but like casually I'll just pop on LinkedIn, even if I know there's no updates, just to see what's good. You know, I feel like that's like one of those, you know how I don't want this to get too creepy, but like, you know how some people like when they stalk people, they like, they stalk their socials.
Yeah.
Or they stalk like, I mean,
Venmo.
I feel Venmo is like a great way
Venmo,
because
yeah.
I guess people are like
That's
they
in
see
the
exactly.
know.
That's why everyone. I hope you like make that shit private because you know
probably
exactly where you're transacting and it can get pretty sus. But like, I feel like I'll know more people about where like they're located and where they're at in life just based on like where their job location is.
Yeah.
Just because I don't really use social media too much. So I mean, as opposed to someone posting like, "Hey, just moved to New York."
Right.
I'm like, "Oh, they started a job in New York."
Yeah.
I guess they're in New York now.
And you'll bring it up in conversation. You'll be like, "Yo, you know Annie's in New York now?" We're like, "Oh shoot, how'd you know?" He's like, "LinkedIn."
Yeah, because that's how I don't know. I keep tabs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does help because I feel like certain photos you don't even get details of like what the life move was, right? Like someone posts a house, you're like, "Where is the house? When did you buy a house? For how much?" You look on LinkedIn, it's like, "Oh, real estate agent. Oh, they're in Kentucky now." You know, like.
So it's like all the pieces. I bring this to the table. Everyone brings something to the table, and you bring it together. You get the full scope of where this person's at in their life.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we need to ask the viewers, like, all right, so where do you think Michael should be focusing his energy in social media? Should it be LinkedIn, Facebook? I'm trying to think. Instagram, TikTok. Sorry, my mind just went blank there.
Be Dad's on TikTok?
Huh?
Be Dad's on TikTok?
No, we're not on TikTok.
Not yet,
But maybe.
but that's down the line. We're definitely trying to get some shorts up, so stay tuned for that.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like with social, it's like it's a very vast blue ocean.
Yeah,
of,
there's
like,
just so many
ways we
social
can
medias.
take.
We could bring back Vine, you know?
Oh, I
Self-hosted
love
Vine.
Vine. Yeah.
Yeah. Vine was TikTok before TikTok.
Yeah. Vine was dope.
All right.
Yik Yak.
Oh,
You guys Yik Yak? You guys Yik Yak?
It's like,
I
remember.
used it. I
People
didn't
use
use
on
it.
campus.
Yeah.
No, it was on campus thing.
Yeah.
There was another one, right? It was Zikak and another one on campus.
Like Group Me?
No, GroupMe is no,
GroupMe.
no, that's like frat central. But like,
No, what's that one? The other one.
No,
Yeah,
that's not
no,
what
no,
it
no,
was.
no, 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 okay.
unless you want to fund us.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it was Yik Yak, but then I feel like Yik Yak got like a dark turn. It became very like frat centric too.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Like
really?
like they posted a lot of like party stuff. I only remember using it like a little bit for my freshman year, and then just because like people would post like where cool things were happening on campus and whatnot. But
I thought it was just funny stuff.
oh,
I
maybe
didn't know it was for
I don't even
events.
think maybe it wasn't Yik Yak. There was another
Yeah.
app or something.
I feel like people kind of do a similar thing now where they like it's after the fact, but people post like overheard type stuff.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
more like
on
maybe it was
Facebook.
more like overheard like
Overheard is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like on campuses.
I don't know.
All right. I think we're going tangents, but I think with that said of the topic of social media, find us on bigdata.dimsum, and we're also Big Data and Dimsum on Spotify. Catch us at bigdata.dimsum@gmail.com.
There you go.
Brand consistency. But pretty much, yeah, if you have any questions, any comments of this week's episode, we'd love to hear it.
Please.
And I think with that, peace.
Peace.